Hi everyone. Wait. Hi everyone. This is video 3 in our React Redux videos. In this video, we're going to be starting up by actually setting up our Redux store. So that way, if you remember from last video, we had our app component and that just held our test to-dos just to see that we could render them onto screen. We don't want that right now. What we want to do is we want to have those held in the Redux store. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create 3 new folders, and we're going to create, whoops, that is the wrong folder. Well, let's make sure we have the right dependencies. First thing we're going to do, we got React, Redux. Okay, perfect. So let's create new folders. So the first one will be our actions folder. Then we want to create our reducers folder. And we want to create our containers folder. And containers will be how we dynamically render our components, because our components are dumb components. They just take information and spit it out. Our containers will be able to feed that information into those components. So let's go ahead and we can start with our actions, because that's probably the easiest one. And we're going to do that. We're going to create, so all our actions right now are just going to be in our index.tsx file. And in there we're going to say, so each one of our to-dos is going to have a ID. So we're going to set that at the beginning to be 0. And then we're going to export a few functions. So the first one will be just toggle to do. So that's going to give you your ID for your to-dos, or the ability to say if they're complete or not. And that's going to take a type, because these are our actions. So every action has a type and a payload. So this will be toggle to do, and its payload will be an ID. And next we'll say export, and we'll be able to use these in later videos. Then we want to add a to-do, and in our add to-do, it's going to take a text, and then it's going to spit out type add to do, and it's going to create a new ID. Whoops. And it'll just keep iterating up as we go, incrementing, and it's going to take the text. Okay, and then we're going to want to say export constant set visibility filter. So this we're not going to use right away, but this is going to be able to give us our which set of to-dos are visible at a given time. So do we want to look at completed to-dos? Do we want to look at all our to-dos yet to be done? It's going to be able to let us filter them based on that. And that's just going to take the filter as the payload. So we have a type toggle to do, type add to do, and type set visibility filter. Fantastic. Let's save that. And then we're going to go into our reducers, and we're going to create an index file for there. And we're going to also create a to-dos.tsx. And in our to-dos.tsx, this is where we're going to actually be able to start our to-do list. So in here, we're going to say create our to-dos. So This is basically going to be, so you send this action to our, set an action to our reducer that takes an action and a state, and then it returns like something with a new state. So create a switch statement and then say which type of action, and we're going to say on case, what if it's an add to do? Whoops. We're going to return an array that's going to contain the old state of to-dos and our new to-do. Remember, we've said when we create a new to-do, it's going to give us everything on the action. So it's going to have the text, the ID, and it's going to have completed to be a default of false. Okay, that's pretty good for that. Let's now, and then we want to say our next case, which would be case toggle to do, and that's going to return, whoops, our state, and we're going to want to go and we're going to map through our state. We're going to map through each one of our to-dos, and we're going to say, I'll write this out a little more clearly. We're going to say basically return create a ternary statement if the to-do ID is equal to the action ID, then we want to return our to-do, and we want to say completed is equal to to-do completed, not completed. So it'll just switch whatever completed was to the opposite. And then if it doesn't equal the ID, we're just going to return to do. And that should be that. What's this thing's problem? Spread types may only be created from object types. I don't see why that should be a problem. Let's just let it suss itself out for a minute. And then of course we have to have our default state. And in our default, we're just going to return the state, the basic state. Let's see if I can clean this up a little. Okay, to do, okay, that's fine. So if anything, we can just say any. And then can't find name to-dos. Let's not worry about this right now. Okay. And then we want to export that. We're going to say export default to-dos. And then actually what I want to do right now is I want to go into my to-do list, and I want to actually, nope, not to-do list, where was it? In my app, steal this test to-dos. I'm going to take that out. And then I want to go back to my to-dos list. And let's just start our state at test to-dos. Yep, perfect. And then the only thing we'll have to do is we're going to have to I'll show you later on. So let's now move on to, we got to do something with this. So we actually have to, we're going to have more than one reducer in the future. So we're going to want to use this function called combine reducers, which allows us to have access to a bunch of reducers at a time. And we're going to say import that from Redux, then import our to-dos from to-dos. And finally, we're going to say const to-do app equals combine reducers. And that's just going to take an object of the reducers that we'd like to combine. So there it is. And we want to export that. And now we have all these errors because all sorts of stuff's going on. To-dos no longer exists. It's just going to fall apart because test to-dos isn't defined. Let's go back into our app. We're going to erase that. Let's just put some temp information for now. So let's just say div. Let's give it an H1. Let's give this a title. Back to my app. All right. Oh, and there we are. There it exists. So now we just wanted to our container for the to-do app. So let's just go into containers, and we want to create a new file, and we want to say visible to-do list.tsx. Now, most of the to-do list is going to be visible at first. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to import, we want to get access to our store. So we're going to say connect. We want to connect to the store somehow. And we're going to do that from React Redux. And then we are going to import toggle to do from actions, and we want to import to-do list because we want to have access to our to-do list from our components. All right, now this is pretty simple. So basically what we want to do is we want to map the to-dos onto our to-do list. So we want to map the properties onto the to-do list. So in order to do that, first we want to say we want to create a couple map functions. So map state to props, and that's going to take a state, and it's going to return to-dos. And we can say state.todos. Okay. And then we want to say map dispatch. So this is the function that we need. And dispatch, it takes a dispatcher, and then it will map on to do click, and we want to pass the ID and say dispatch toggle to do ID. All right, sounds good to me. And now we want to say const. Here's our visible to do list, and we get that by now using our connect function and saying we want to map the state to props, and map dispatch to props. And we're going to do that by currying to-do list onto there. And then we just want to export default visible. Perfect. So this isn't going to quite do anything yet. What we need to do now is go back to our app component. Actually, our index component, our main component, and we want to connect the store into our app. So we're going to want to say import create store. Well, we need to put it in barrels first. Create store from Redux, and we want to get our provider component from React Redux, and we want to import our to-do app from our reducers. Okay, so now what we want to do is we just want to say let store. We want to create a store, create store, and we want to pass our to-do app to it. All right, and now we have this app here, and we want to create a provider. Oops. And pass our store to the store in the provider. And then we just have to close provider, because all React, whenever you React a component in React, all the tags have to close. Everything has to be enclosed over another tag. Nothing can be like sequenced. All right, hit save. It's not happy about something. To-dos list is not defined. Okay, where are we? Test to-dos is not defined. So let's go back into our to-do list, our reducers. That looks good. I just want test to-dos. State test to-dos is not defined. Why doesn't it like that? So let's. Oh, well, it's going to have a problem with this because I typed it in the other. Oh, there we go. Okay, now it's rendering. And now we just want to import our, go back to our app.tx and import our visibility filters. Our visible to-do list from, where are we? In components. We want to be in containers. Visible to-do list. And actually, no barrels here because it's the only thing exporting from it. And let me just put it here. It's not going to quite work yet. And there we go. And the clicking now works. We can't add any yet, but we'll get to that in the next video. Looks pretty good so far. I think I like it. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, and see you in the next video.